Your seafood, where does it come from? Oysters. There are three main oyster species in Australia: the Pacific oyster, the Sydney rock oyster, and the native flat Angasi oyster. Pacific oysters are farmed in Tasmania, South Australia and New South Wales. Sydney rock oysters are farmed in New South Wales and southern Queensland. Native Angasi flat oysters are farmed in small amounts in all states: Western Australia, South Australia and Tasmania. Juvenile oysters are called spat. The spats or seeds are put into trays or bags which are held above the sea floor. Growth of the oyster depends on the season or environmental conditions such as food availability. The oysters are then harvested by lifting the bags to the surface and removing the mature oysters. The oysters are then cleaned, graded, packed and prepared for transport to the processing centre, the retail outlet or the restaurant. Many farmers are now selling their product at oyster bars next to their farm. Barramundi and snapper. There are up to 50 kinds of snapper which can be caught all around Australia. For example, there's Saddletail Snapper, Red Emperor Snapper, Goldband Snapper and Crimson Snapper, just to name a few. Snapper and other white fish are caught by nets, traps and hooks. Fishermen use location sounders and species-appropriate fishing gear to ensure the majority of the catch is the targeted species. Baited traps are set in water ranging from 2 to hundreds of metres. Traps have holes to let unwanted species escape, and they're also designed so that if they're lost at sea, they fall apart so as to not trap or injure marine life. Line, which is when a baited hook is attached to a line. Once the fish are caught, they are then checked for legal limits and species. If the fish do not meet the limits, they are returned to the seas. The fish is then chilled until the core temperature is close to 0 degrees Celsius, and then stored in tubs until the unload at the mainland, where they're transported in refrigerated trucks to processors and distributors. Farmed barramundi are grown in the following grow-out systems where strict environmental systems apply: ponds, recirculating tank systems, and sea cages. Fingerlings are produced in a hatchery and are grown to 30 to 100 millimetres. They are then transported to grow-out systems. Barramundi can grow at a rate of 40 centimetres a year, so it takes as little as 18 months to 2 years to reach marked size, such as plate size, often cooked whole or larger for fillets. The barramundi are then harvested, chilled and transported to processors, retailers and restaurants. Sardines. Australian sardines are fished in New South Wales, Victoria, South Australia and Western Australia. The sardine's main catching method is purse seining. This is when a purse seine net is deployed around a school of sardines. The catch is then brought on board to refrigerated holds at below 0 temperatures to ensure the quality of the catch. The frozen sardines are then packed and prepared for transport. Prawns. There are 5 main prawn species in Australia. Eastern king prawns are fished in New South Wales and Queensland. Western king prawns are fished in Western and South Australia. Banana prawns are fished in the Gulf of Carpentaria. Brown tiger prawns are fished in New South Wales, Western Australia, Queensland and the Gulf of Carpentaria. And blue and red Endeavour prawns are fished on the north coast of Western Australia, the Torres Strait Islands, the Gulf of Carpentaria and the east coast of Queensland. There are also black tiger and banana prawns which are farmed in ponds in northern Australia. Different species of prawns have different size and flavour attributes. You can use a specific prawn to match a particular dish. Trawl is one of the most widely used prawn fishing methods in Australia. Trawling is performed in many ways and strict management rules apply to all prawn fisheries. The prawns are then caught, sorted, graded for size and quality, sometimes cooked, boxed, chilled or frozen, and then transported to restaurants, processing centres or retail centres. Prawns can also be snap frozen on the boat, and this ensures the quality of frozen prawns is as good as that of fresh ones. Years of research have gone into ensuring that the Australian prawn industry meets the highest level of environmental compliance, including being certified by the Marine Stewardship Council and accreditation endorsed by the WWF. Lobster. There are 4 major rock lobster species in Australia. Southern rock lobster, which are fished in Tasmania, Victoria, South Australia and Western Australia. Eastern rock lobster, which are fished in New South Wales, Victoria and Tasmania. Western rock lobster, which are fished on the Western Australian coastline, and the tropical rock lobster, which are fished in Northern Australia. Rock lobsters are mostly caught in baited pots at depths of 10 to 40 metres before they're pulled out. Batten pots are used for Western rock lobster. The pots are rectangular with tapered sides and use a single entrance at the top. Undersized rock lobsters can escape through gaps at the base. The fishermen pull the pots and check that the rock lobster meets legal size and gender criteria. The live rock lobster are placed in aerated wells, returned to the port and unloaded. From there, the live lobsters are transported to live holding facilities for export and the domestic market. The majority are transported live to these markets. Sometimes rock lobsters are pre-processed and delivered cooked, whole or frozen, or with the legs and tails removed for separate sale. Crabs. There are several major crab species found and commercially caught in Australia. Blue swimmer crabs, which are fished in Western Australia and South Australia. Mud crabs, which are fished in northern Western Australia, Northern Territory, Queensland and northern New South Wales. A range of deep sea crabs, crystal, champagne and snow crabs, which are fished in southwestern, South Australian and Tasmanian waters. Spanner crabs, which are fished in northern New South Wales and southern Queensland. Catching methods for crabs vary from species to species. A majority, however, are caught in baited pots, which are set at depths from 5 to 40 metres. They are left to soak for a period of time, which allows for crabs to find the bait before the pots are pulled out. Other methods of crab catching include by hand for mud crabs and screen trays for spanner crabs. The fishermen pull the pots and check that the crab meets legal size and gender criteria. Each state and territory fisheries management agency set these criteria. Crabs enter our markets in 2 main forms, either fresh, dead or alive, and processed. The handling technique for live crabs differs depending on how they will enter the market. Some species, such as blue swimmer crabs, are held in live tanks on the fishing boats until it returns to port prior to it being processed at onshore facilities. If the crabs are to be sold live, larger crab species such as mud or crystal crab's claws will have their claws bound and be placed in aerated wells, returned to the port and unloaded. From there, the live crabs are transported to live holding facilities for export and the domestic market. The majority are transported live to these markets. Crabs can be processed and delivered cooked, whole or frozen. A number of producers are also now producing a range of value-added products such as crab cakes, bisques, or meat products such as claw or mince. Octopus, squid and cuttlefish. There are 5 major types of squid and calamari caught in Australian waters. These are the northern and southern calamari, the arrow squid, the southern squid and the loligo squid. Squid and calamari often get mixed up and are grouped under the one heading, calamari. The difference between squid and calamari is around the length of the wing flap along the body. Full length is calamari, shortened length is squid. A majority of the squid caught in Australia comes from the southern waters, starting from northern New South Wales, around Victoria, Tasmania, South Australia and across to Western Australia. Cuttlefish, which are a different species to squid, are also commercially caught in Australia and purchased and cooked in similar ways to squid. There are 3 types of octopus fished in Australia. However, one species makes up the majority caught and sold. Octopus are commercially fished in Tasmania, South Australia and southern Western Australia. Calamari, squid and cuttlefish are caught by line at night with a lamp to attract them or by trawling. Once on board, the catch is chilled whole and then placed in tubs in refrigerated holds. At unload, the catch is transported in tubs to the distributors. Octopus are generally caught with baited traps or pots, which are set in water ranging from 2 to hundreds of metres. The industry catch methods are evolving, and new methods such as the environmentally safer trigger pot are now becoming common practice. Once on board, the catch is chilled until the core temperature is close to 0 degrees Celsius, and then they are stored in tubs, often in a chiller, until the unload at the mainland, where they're transported in refrigerated trucks to processors and distributors. At the processors, the octopus may be steamed and then may be subject to various value-adding procedures.